dear Chairman of the Commission. As a result of my research, I would like to present to you my master thesis by the topic the use of agricultural cluster as a tool for regional economic development in Africa. Well, the objective of this master thesis is to explore the use of agricultural-based cluster as a possible solution for African economic development. This master thesis analyzes as well the concept of cluster, the requirement for cluster implementations, the main benefit from cluster implementation for country or region. As well, it analyzes the potential and perspective of cluster development in Africa. Well, the concept of cluster was introduced into scientific society by American economist Michael Porter, and according to him, cluster are geographical concentration of interconnected companies, specialized suppliers, service providers, firms in related industry, and associated institutions. For example, universities, trade association, government, policy, and so on. And this institution and this firm cooperate, but as well they compete against each other. The concept of cluster basically is most associated with competitiveness and innovation, which are value more related to fields such as IT and electronic. That's why when the most famous example of cluster implementation is the Silicon Valley. However, there are a lot of successful examples of cluster implementation in agriculture cluster, in agriculture sector in the world. So agriculture cluster can be defined as a group of suppliers, logistic process organization for the sale of agricultural products that are interconnected by common commercial interest. The main requirement or requisite for a country or region for cluster implementation usually had the existence of agricultural industry in the region, the existence of public institutions such as the government to support the cluster, the existence of the arable lands, the existence of labor resource, and the interest or engagement of the population on agricultural activity. The main benefits for a country or region from cluster implementation are the increase of efficiency and reducing cost in production and transportation costs, is the reduction of poverty and the increase of the reduction of unemployment rate, especially in rural areas, the increase of direct investment, especially in agriculture sector, and increase of exports products, especially from agriculture sector for international markets, and of course the increase of GDP as well. The agriculture sector make a big contribution to GDP by agriculture implementation. So the analysis of cluster implementation, especially in agriculture sector in the world, showed that countries like the United States, China, India, who have implemented cluster in agriculture, had a very positive increase on their GDP. The most famous example of cluster implementation in the world are here, as you can see from the table, the corn cluster in America, Texas. This cluster is the biggest cluster in the world related in agriculture sector, and is responsible for producing 90% of all corn produced in the United States. And the second example of cluster in agriculture sector is the California wine cluster, just to tell you some example. This is the second biggest cluster in agriculture sector, and is responsible for 18% of all wine produced in the United States. The use of agriculture cluster or cluster in Africa experience is not so common, but there are some examples from cluster implementation, such as the South Africa wine cluster. This cluster is the biggest cluster in Africa and is responsible for supplying on international market 11% of all wine on the international market, and it's employing more than 40,000 employees. The second cluster is the Poko cluster in Kenya. This cluster is the oldest cluster in Africa continent, and it's responsible for 40% of all exportation from Kenya. The last example of cluster experience in Africa is the Uganda cluster, fishing cluster. This cluster is located on Lake Victoria, but it's not exactly the Uganda cluster. This cluster was built between two countries. This lake is located between two big countries, Uganda and Kenya. And this cluster is responsible for 25% suppliers of fishing on international markets. Well, in order to assess the perspective and potential for South Africa region in cluster implementation, a SWOT analysis was performed. Here from the table you can see the strengths, opportunity, weakness, traits that I will not read for you to save the time. But the conclusion for this SWOT analysis is that the South Africa region has a very high potential for agriculture cluster implementation, as there are a lot of hectares of arable lands. There are more than 90% of population are engaged in agricultural sector. There are a lot of rivers, but there are some weaknesses, such as a low investment on agriculture sector. There are some, maybe the government is not paying a lot of attention to agriculture sector. So these are some problems that should be fixed in order to successfully develop the agriculture cluster in South Africa region. Well, there is already some clusters in Africa, smalls and bigs, as I said already before. The most two big clusters, three big clusters that I said, but there are a lot of small clusters. In order to analyze the impact of clusters implementation in agriculture sector, I decided to build an econometric model to see which is the impact of agriculture in South Africa economy. Here you can see the independent variable had the agriculture sector contribution to South Africa GDP as X1 in million, the number of workers on agriculture sector X2, the unemployment rate X3, available agriculture land X4, average agriculture product export in billion X5, direct investment on agriculture sector in billion X6, and the number of agriculture cluster in South Africa is dependent variable. So,
thank you for your time. Thank you for your report. Your time is over, and your questions of audience are welcome. Who is the first?
I'm having just one question. Thank you very much for an excellent job done. In your work and in your presentation, you gave us several examples of successful implementation of clusters in agriculture in Africa. What is my question is everything absolutely well done in this sphere? Or how do you feel if there's something to improve, something to change? Because I'm not sure that it is so successful as you wish it to be.
yes, of course, clusters in Africa, as I said, is not a popular technique or policy used in order to develop the continent. There are few clusters, and of course there are a lot of problems, especially in Uganda, in Kenya, because there are a lot of interventionism of the government in this cluster. As you know, cluster is developed by the businessmen, education institution, and government. Which is the role of government on cluster? The role of government is to develop policies who can, in order to help the implementation cluster. But as I said already, in Kenya, the government is in order to get money as a player. It not should be a player. It should be just a controller. So this is the main problem. I can make a resume this problem as corruption problem on cluster. This is the main problem. The second problem is that there is not a lot of how is called it. There is no collaboration between the the parts in cluster. Sometimes they usually see each other more than competitors than partners. So they should improve this kind of policy in order to develop more cluster. So if you wish, you can check on my master thesis. There are a lot of recommendations for development, for implementation in cluster. So you can see a lot of information there about that. Thank you.
You are talking about different experiences of cluster implementation, for example, Texas or California, whatever. What experience you consider was the best one, and which experience could be the closest and the most useful for Africa? Which is more similar? I mean, for example, if you're comparing Texas or California, I'm not sure it could be a good device for Africa, for example. Whose experience you consider is the most useful?
Yes, usually when we take example and experience, in my case I take for the best. I usually take example for the best people. So of course we should take example for the biggest cluster in the world is the Cone cluster in California. But as you know, as I said here, the implementation of cluster, there are some requirements. So you cannot just build a cluster as you want. There are requirements. So the most useful example for Africa is China, because we have a lot of factors in common. You know, we have same problems. We have same kind of number of population in rural areas. So we should take more from China. But if you take for the best is Cone in Texas. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting.
Thank you.
I want to ask about your recommendation. How do you think could it be useful for Russian economy?
Very interesting question. I'm not very familiarized. I don't know the Russian situation about agriculture sector. I know your country is very rich in oil, and the same situation, the same problem is faced by my country. The government is more looking for oil industry and is forgetting other industries such as agriculture, tourism, and so on. So I think Russia is a big country, as we know, and it has a lot of arable land, and it could use as a competitive advantage to become, why not, a potential in international markets for food supply. It's food supplier for a neighbor's country. I think so they could take this example. So maybe it's that, because I don't know very well the situation in Russia.
So thank you for your presentation. And the next step is we will make preparations. Is